What an incredible day of hockey, as today we saw the quarterfinal matchups for the 2026 Olympic men's hockey tournament. And we got it all today. We saw some crazy games, comebacks, overtime heroes, and some controversy. It was an unreal day of hockey, so let's recap it. Starting with the first game, it was Slovakia taking on Germany. I think a lot of people were expecting Germany to win this game, but the Slovaks proved to be too much to handle. Their depth stepped up, and unfortunately for Germany, their depth did not. It started with a Regenda tip in the first period late to make it 1-0, and then the second period, the Germans really imploded defensively. Kellerman with the steal and a really nice finish on the back end to make it 2-0 just 4 minutes into the second, and 30 seconds later, a fast break to make it 3-0 before Dalibor Dvorsky sniped one at the 9:40 mark of the period, and it was pretty much out of reach from there. Reichel finished off a nice feed from Draisaitl to make it 4-1, but the Slovaks quickly demolished any hope they had, with Regenda second in the game, making it 5-1 in the first minute of the third period. Final score 6-2, and the Slovaks will play in the semifinals, and they have a chance to medal for the second consecutive tournament. Next up, Canada and Czechia, and this game was an absolute pleasure to watch. We saw these teams play in the round robin, and Canada won that game 5-0, but it definitely felt closer than that, so we expected a good game here. And it was Macklin Celebrini opening the scoring off a feed from McDavid just 3 minutes in, off a terrible turnover by David Pastrnak. However, Canada had a terrible turnover of their own shortly after. Mark Stone threw in cross ice in the neutral zone. Radko Gudas picked it off, went back the other way, and set up Lukas Sedlik to tie the game at 1. The Czechs would go on the power play, and it was David Pastrnak blasting a one-timer top left corner on Binnington, and that would remain the score heading into the second period. And Canada suffered a significant loss as the captain Sidney Crosby was roughed up a couple times and ended up leaving the game with a lower body injury. There was blatant interference by Palat. He rocked him at the blue line, and then a couple shifts later, Gudas bumped him a couple times. He got crunched by 2 players, and that seemed to be the final blow. Apparently he's going in for an MRI, so we're going to have some news on that situation soon. But nonetheless, it was a power play for Canada, and Nathan MacKinnon tied the game. They were pressing hard, and they were not going to be denied. Nick Suzuki had a wide open net with 3:20 to go in the second, but he hit the post. And Nick Suzuki's been getting a lot of hate this tournament online. A lot of people thought he should be scratched for this game and in favor of Sam Bennett. So keep that in mind as we talk about the later stages of this game. In the third, there was a shot from Harley that was blocked. The Czechs went back the other way. It was Andre Palat on the 3-on-2, sniping it past Binnington. However, if you look at this play, you'll notice there are 6 Czech players in the celebration. And when you look at the play in the defensive zone, there were 6 Czechs on the ice, and somehow the refs missed this. So Czechia gets away with a too many men call and scores on the play. An absolute all-time blunder from the refs, and if this was the game-winning goal, you would never stop hearing about it. However, there's no quit in Canada, and it's Nick Suzuki, the guy who missed the open net, at the end of a shift, dumps the puck in, wins the battle, gets it to the point for Taves, who sends it on, and then it's Suzuki heading to the net and tipping the puck past Dostal to tie the game at 3 with just over 3 minutes remaining. Marty Necas got a partial break, but Binnington came up huge with 1:13 remaining to keep it a tied game. And so we would go to overtime, where Mitch Marner takes on the Czechs 1-on-3 and beats Dostal with the backhand to send Canada to the semifinals. What an incredible hockey game we had, and Canada remains alive after a huge scare from the Czechs. Also have to mention the post-game comments from the Czechs head coach Radim Rulik. He said, "We were basically playing against 6 players," when referring to Canada and the officiating. He was angry about the Marty Necas breakaway. He felt like Necas was held up by Taves, and I actually do agree that there was a bit of a hook there. However, the irony in this statement is absolutely ridiculous, considering the Czechs literally scored with 6 players on the ice. He also suggested that the refs were scared to make penalty calls on Canada. However, there were 2 penalties to each team this game, so I have no idea what the basis of his statements are. It's absolutely ridiculous. He just sounds like a sore loser. Moving on to the next game, it was Switzerland and Finland, and this game did not disappoint at all. It was a great follow-up to the Canada-Czechia game. The Swiss had 2 quick goals at the end of the first period here. It was a after a misplay by Saros behind the net. He had the whole net to shoot at, didn't miss there. And just over a minute later, Niederreiter walked into a one-timer and absolutely ripped it by Saros. Switzerland held on to this for the majority of the game. It looked like they almost had a couple shorthanded goals as Finland had a power play where Saros had to stand tall and make some big saves. It seemed like that power play was just going to take away all the momentum that the Finns were trying to build, but ultimately Sebastian Aho was able to get them on the board with a great shot off the zone entry with 6:07 remaining. You had Giannoni absolutely robbing Granlund with 2.5 minutes left, and it seemed like the Swiss were destined to win this game. However, with a comeback for the ages, it was Miro Heiskanen tying the game with 1:13 remaining. And then Anton Lundell springing Arturi Lehkonen for the breakaway in overtime, and he would snipe it over the shoulder of Giannoni, and the Finns survive, pull off the epic comeback, and will meet Canada in the semifinals. And although you blew a 2-0 lead, it was a valiant effort from the Swiss team. They're obviously not as skilled as the Finns, but they put up a strong performance this tournament, surprised a lot of people. And that brings us to the final game of the quarterfinals, Sweden taking on the States. Pretty unbelievable that these teams are facing off in a quarterfinal, but nonetheless, it was a very defensive game, and we didn't see a goal until the 9-minute mark of the second period, where Quinn Hughes sent it over to Jack, and then he sent on a puck that was deflected by Dylan Larkin. Beautiful deflection into the opposite corner. No chance for Markstrom on that one. We saw some excellent goaltending from Hellebuck and Markstrom. I think Markstrom had an excellent game overall as well. He made close to 40 saves. And with the net empty, 1:33 remaining, it was Mika Zibanejad with the one-timer off a great cross-ice feed from Lucas Raymond, finally beating Hellebuck and sending this game to overtime. And in overtime, it was Quinn Hughes picking up the puck from Boldy, walking in and just sniping it by the glove of Markstrom. An incredible game, had an incredible ending. Some notes from this game: Victor Hedman did not play. He was on the bench though. It was confusing, but it does turn out that he had an injury, and that's the reason he did not play. He wasn't being benched by the coach of Sweden, Sam Hallam. Sam Hallam made some questionable decisions this tournament, to say the least. A lot of controversy around him. Somehow Rasmus Dahlin, by far their best defenseman, did not play in overtime at all. And when you make decisions like that, you're probably going to lose. But overall, an incredible day of hockey, 3 overtimes, the drama. Which was your favorite game from today? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys Friday, recapping the semifinals games, and Sunday, talking about the gold and bronze medal games. And thanks so much for watching. If you could like the video, comment. I really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.